All right, guys, welcome back in. This video is actually a follow up to my previous video regarding the new Gearwrench 120 tooth locking flex head. Right, nice ratchet that just came out, and it's unique design, and it's got 120 teeth, which is a lot more than we've seen in ratchets in the past 10 years. And that technology is very unique. And we'll dive into it in just a second, but I want to build up to the history of why this one exists and what makes it unique inside. So we'll take a look inside after we start kind of a little quick history lesson. And hopefully this is a good review for a lot of you guys that have ratchets or looking to buy ratchets. Which one of these ratchets should I be looking at to add to my toolbox? What should I do as far as regular maintenance for these? And overall, yeah, which one do I want? Or do I want a multiple of these? So, anyways, I'm going to dive in, give you guys a little quick rundown history lesson. And I'm going to go back in time and start with this SK wrench first. And bear with me, I've already tore some of these apart. I don't want to tear all of them apart for the sake of time. But let's take a quick look at this SK. So this is what we call a traditional round head ratchet, this SK Custom. Built in USA, has a round head. I can even throw it back in here so you guys can see what it looks like. The key to this one is twist it just slightly, put it back together. This is a very common ratchet out there. All right, selector turns left and right, on and off. So taking a look inside, what makes this unique from all the other ratchets here is the fact that the pawl, and we refer to pawls, well, I'll show you each and each one of them, but the pawls are these three ridges here, and excuse the grease because I have greased this up a while ago, but these three pawls are what actually engage on the outside ring of the head. So you can see it actually casted or forged into the head itself. And so what causes this ratchet to grab is when you turn the selector. Let me do it so you can see both sides at the same time. So currently this side is protruding. As you turn the head, it switches over and the opposite side protrudes. And that allows it to ride, and then you go backwards, it engages. Right? So you flip the switch, same thing. Now you could ride this way. Maybe makes that ratcheting sound. And then when you put pressure against it, it engages and pushes outwards against the casing. So this was traditionally how a lot of older ratchets are made. It's very economical to make them. This one actually has 3 teeth, which is actually a fair amount. I think typically max you'd see 4, minimum you'd see 2 or 1. So SK had a fairly decent design back in the day when they designed this ratchet. But yeah, the downside is, you can make these teeth here are actually fairly hard. So this is actually, a pretty good steel that's used here. The downside is this, the actual ratchet handle itself, is a softer metal, and generally, this gets worn down on the teeth fairly quick. Plus, when you really put the beans to this ratchet, as you're tightening on something, all that pressure goes straight outwards on this thinner exterior surface. So that could cause these to split, blow out, stretch, and ultimately you lose the effectiveness of this ratchet. Now, retention's pretty simple. It is, right, just this ring, or C-clip, it just tightens down, drops down inside, and locks it in place. So a good ratchet, a good little walk down history lane, but ratchets have come much further since then. So I would say let's jump in next to, I think many people out there have seen or used a Craftsman before. And this is a Craftsman, I believe USA made one. Yeah, one of the last USA ones made. And I'll show you, this has very much the same snap ring as we saw with the SK. So take a quick set of pliers, grab, squeeze, and pull, and of course lose my snap ring. Luckily I see it on the floor, but I wanted to show you guys how that actually worked. So this is your Craftsman, and this has been a traditional setup for many years for Craftsman. They've used the same style for, decades. And what's unique about this is they changed it. So from being the pawls built into the center anvil, that actually has teeth. And these are, as you can tell here, quite rugged teeth. Total tooth count on this is 24 teeth. So not a lot. And then you look down here at the paw, and sorry guys, this might be a little hard to focus, but you see one, two, yeah, there's two. There's two ridges essentially. And you flip over either side, it's two. So you got two teeth on either side engaging in these really deep teeth. So it works. You could put a fair amount of torque on these. Obviously, look at this one. This has not been touched. It has very little grease in it. So shame on Craftsman. They did not grease this one up very well. And if you want to hear what a high tooth count sounds like, it sounds like that. It's very clunky. You know, you have to turn yay far for engagement. So I think it's closer to something like 17 or 18 degrees. It is not ideal, but this is what this industry standard was for quite some time for most of us. So not a bad design. It's strong enough, and some people really like this tooth count, even to this day. But since then, we've moved on to other styles, and the tooth count has increased as we've gone. Let me jump into this ratchet here. This is a heart one, flex head, and this is one that you guys are going to see a lot more common. This is going to be a dual pawl setup, but it's going to be on the outside. It's not going to be a floating pawl that we'll see here in a minute. But this will have dual pawls, and I'll bring it in a little bit closer for you guys. It even says left and right. And so as you engage with the reversing or selector switch, it's going to engage one side or the other side. Now, a lot of people like to bash on these because typically your Chinese made, some Taiwanese made ratchets use this design. And this is probably currently the least expensive design you can make, and they're very easy to recognize from the exterior, right? They look just like this. They have a fairly big head. It's not very tight. This is your pear head style, roughly, but it's very clunky, very thick, just not a super nice design. I will say this though, in contrary to many people's belief, this pawl design, especially if it has significant enough amount of teeth, this one looks like it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teeth. I've seen as low as 3, 5 to I think sometimes 7 you could get. This design is actually inherently strong, especially as you bite down, because that leverage, right? It's as you bite down and tighten something, it's going to take this pawl and just want to shove it this direction, but it can't, obviously, because there's not enough space between the ratchets. And so, in a lot of torque tests that you'll actually see out there, these actually perform fairly well. Now, are they the best? I've seen them sometimes come in like the top 3. But generally they actually do pretty well. Now, sound-wise, this one's, I believe, a 72 tooth. It may be a 90. I think it's actually 72. But, right, it's got a nice feel to it, both ways. It actually has this crush washer in there. And maybe we'll show you inside just a little bit so you can see how the construction works. If only my camera wanted to work. So there you go. Right, you can see the teeth. Here is the anvil. Right, you have this large surface area, and that's the way they make up for having so few teeth on these pawls. They have to make this anvil this much deeper or wider in order to get enough bite to hold on. Now, they use a crush ring here too to help keep play to a minimum, but you know, it does okay. Now, bolting these together, I actually like what they did with this one. Is when you put this case on, like so, the cover, you actually run the bolts from the back into the case. Now that's a better method of holding these together, because if you're tightening down, torquing these down, if you strip out the face here, then you can always get a new faceplate. Right? Snap-on does the exact same thing. Bolts through the back, threads into the cover plate. You could always buy a new face. But you'll see here in a second, some manufacturers choose to do it the opposite. they'll run the bolts through this hole this way, and then they'll secure into the head here. And over time, that actually will weaken, and it just doesn't quite hold up as well. Now, it's a smaller gripe, but it is worth noting that you ideally want to have your threads finalize their connection into this cover. So, anyways, good ratchet here for the money. Like I said, we all want a dog on these ones, but honestly, if you could get past the big fat head, and the slightly different sound that it is attributed to this pair head style, the dual pawl, it's not terrible, but it's definitely not the best. So moving on from that, actually let's dive into this next. This is a power torque. You can find this at O'Reilly's. And what I liked about this is it's a very small head design. It is a high tooth count. I want to say it's probably closer to 90 on this one. And but the one major downside to this ratchet, and some of you are probably gathering it right now, is there's absolutely no way to service. So these are becoming much more popular on the marketplace, non-serviceable ratchets. The good news is a lot of manufacturers still give you a lifetime or limited lifetime warranty. So if these ever fail, you can take them in. And quite frankly, I had one of these that failed. It was right out of the gate, and I didn't actually put much power into it, tightening my fastener that I was working on, and it just started skipping. So I took it in. It was kind of a hassle with the guy there who wanted a receipt, but ultimately the manager came in and took care of me and got me a new ratchet. But these work great for that reason. If you're okay going back in and saying, "Hey, give me a new one," and they have one on the shelf, then this is a good solution. You can still also oil these, albeit it's not the nicest way of doing it. Getting some oil in between there to keep the ratchet working. But ultimately, you cannot service this ratchet. So keep that in mind when you're looking at ratchets. Now, next up is a fairly common type of ratchet. This is actually an Icon. This is kind of like your Snap-on knockoff. And this ratchet does what I was explaining earlier. It does not have, on the backside here, bolts that go through to allow you to tighten down into the cover plate, which is the most ideal method. So when you tighten down into, as you can see here, the pair head itself. So it works, and it works okay, but not the best method. So looking at this style of ratchet, this is a 90 tooth. You can see here it's well oiled. Got a really nice tooth count. And then let's take a quick look at the pawl that just shot out. And there's your pawl, right? Look at all those teeth. That is a great sight to see. And sometimes this could take, guys, 15, 20 minutes to get them thrown back together. This one should not be too bad. All right, guys, we got it all back together. So thanks for hanging in there. So let's take a quick look at that tooth count. If we could get all that together. And you can see that given, this is going to be tough. Let's see if we get a little bit closer. All right, we're going to dive in close here. You can see that the whole pawl is riding on there. And so as you switch the selector from one side to the next, it just slides the pawl over a little bit and allows the pawl to, when you tighten, press on here and then squeeze against the other direction. Otherwise, it's got room to skip that direction. So it skips that way, engages, pulls the pawl against the wall. Same thing, flip it over, same idea. Skips, and then engages. So that is how that system works. So in this case, you're going to get, there's probably 20 little teeth grabbing on. And going by reviews for this ratchet, I've heard very few complaints about these stripping out. Right, so in order to offset those really big teeth that you see on the Craftsman, they get really great engagement. You've got to run, obviously, a lot more teeth here, but a lot more contact points. Small contact points to keep this ratchet engaged and not slipping or stripping teeth. So actually a really good design by Icon on this ratchet. Now, moving on to the ratchet that we just discussed in last video, and I encourage you to go back and take a look because this is the Gearwrench's latest 120 tooth dual pawl setup, and we'll pull it up here. And this takes a Torx T27, it looks like. We'll just loosen that up, take it off. What's nice is if these good manufacturers will actually put some Loctite on these screws. In this case, looks like there's some blue Loctite. So, very nice to see. We'll pull it apart. Just so you guys can see how to actually work on your own ratchets. Now, I like to take a magnet and pull off the case. Quite simple, like so. And then we're going to take a look in here, and let's see how good you guys can see inside there. But there's the top pawl, and then there's a pawl below it. And that allows for these to work simultaneously. Now, what's unique is, so as this tooth, you guys already see how the pawls work, right? As you switch it back and forth, right, it's going to skip, right? It skips, then it grabs and pulls this direction. Same thing with tightening, loosening. I think we're on right now, so if we're taking the fastener off, same thing, it skips this direction, and then as soon as you come back this way, it takes that pawl and shoves it against the body, and it engages. Now, this one appears to have almost all those engaged, maybe except for the last tooth is engaged. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13, or 14 teeth of engagement. And this has got 60, so that's worth noticing here too, is this has 60 teeth on this anvil. So it allows me to keep this head really small for use. Like, you don't have to have a huge, let's say for instance, even just the 90, right? Look how much smaller that is than the 90. Or this one that's also 72 or 90. Right? See how big those heads are? So by them using this design, granted, it might be, I mean, this doesn't even look any thicker than it's still thinner than the Icon. So they use the dual pawl setup, and what happens is, as the top pawl is engaged, the bottom pawl is just outside of engagement. It's just a half a tooth off, and that's why you hear it makes a different sound. It's like kind of like a double clank falling right after each other. So as this one lifts, the other one's engaging. Lifts, engage, lifts, engage, and that's very unique to these dual pawl setups. Now I'm going to take it apart. These are a pain in the butt to put back together, but I'll let you guys see the dual pawl setup for yourself. So once again, actually, if I could keep that retained, we'll be set. So here is the 60 tooth count anvil. And then if you look down inside there, see how those pawls are staggered right now? They are not perfectly aligned. They are off by a half a tooth count. So really cool that they've engineered that way. So let's see if we get this back in without making a mess. Come on. Maybe not. Got it. Awesome. Well, we dodged a bullet today, guys. So really cool setup. The question is long term. I haven't had much experience with these yet, but long term, how will this hold up, right? Because you have less teeth engagement than the Icon, right? Probably close to almost half. And that does allow for a lot tighter arc swing, right? You don't have to move far at all. But if you really start to put the pressure on this ratchet, then only one of the pawls at any given time is going to be engaged. So my thoughts are it's probably going to be a little bit weaker than a 92 setup going to this 120, but it's going to be really smooth and effortless in use. So I like it. I'm gonna give it a try and see how it works long term. But I think so far a slightly smaller tooth count is going to be better. But let's keep going. I want to get one more in here for you guys, and this is a unique ratchet because I'm trying to cover all the gambit here, guys, of what you're going to see out there on the marketplace. This is going to be what they call a 0-degree ratchet, right? It's just, let me get it engaged here. I've been playing with it, but essentially, you don't need any. There's no clicking. This runs off of. There you go. You just turn. As soon as you turn, it engages. So what's unique about this style, and doesn't make any clanking noise, right, is you spin it, let you guys kind of hear it. Of course, I've got it locked up now because I've been playing with it. It needs to be down there. There you go. It is silent. And so what happens with this style is you are dealing with essentially roller bearings, as you'll see here, that move around this hex anvil that you see here. Now, nothing super special about it, but what's unique about it, and it kind of works like those corner drive sockets, really, is, let me get it on here, is the fact that what helps it engage is the fact that as you turn, those bearings will rotate to one corner or the other. And when they rotate to this corner, to the outside, then you can't move it this direction. Likewise, if you flip it to the other direction, it goes to the opposite corner and it pushes. Of course, I gotta get this ring to go down inside there to activate it. Now it pushes on that corner and then pushes outwards to the exterior of the ratchet. So really cool setup. If you're in a really tight place, these are actually really good ratchets to use. Now, the downside is they actually act very much like your traditional round head ratchet because all of the pressure is now going to the exterior, right? The exterior edges of the ratchet. So it's attempting to actually burst out the ratchet to the outsides. And that's where you have the least amount of material in these round head ratchets. So would I take this and really give it all the pressure I could? No. But for average and normal tasks of even slightly tight fasteners, it does a great job. It's actually not bad. You do have to be careful too about oil getting there a little bit. They can tend to slip on occasion. So I would be minimal with oil. But all in all, this is actually a good ratchet. And if you're someone who doesn't or isn't trying to work on something super professionally, this is a good setup. And retention for this is just a simple ring on here. And then there's this, once again, outer C-clip kind of ring. So really good setup. Good, and these are typically really good priced. On the lower end, not that expensive. And they usually too also come with those lifetime warranties. So talking about ratchets, might as well talk about this Carlisle too real quick. This is going to be this one appears to be serviceable, but this is going to be very simple also because a lot of you guys like these roto ratchets. I actually like these a lot, and especially if you find a nice quality one. These are going to act very much similar to your round head in that it uses the outer ring to engage the pawls. So I think this touches most ratchets out there. I'm gonna say 95%. There might be one or two out there that I'm not covering, but this is going to be the vast majority, especially for your intermediate, entry, and professional level. Now, the next question to ask yourself is, well, how do I service these? You see them all open. You saw various ones with no grease. That one, the Craftsman. You saw some with plenty of grease, like the SKs. And then you might ask yourself, how do I grease up these ratchets? And what greases should I use? And quite frankly, I have a kind of a rule of thumb. And this is my rule of thumb. If you're going to be running probably between 36, maybe 50 or less teeth on a ratchet, I actually prefer somewhat of a light, I'm going to say light oil or light grease. I actually like this Redline CB2 for those really thick tooth count ones, and you just put it on lightly. This is going to have a nice MOLLE to it. It's going to hold up to a lot of pressure and heat. It's a good setup. Now, do you want to put this on your higher tooth counts? I'm going to say anything 60, easily 60 above, or maybe even 50 above. You are not going to want to use this for those, because that tooth count is so large, and the teeth themselves are so small that grease is going to actually drop inside of those crevices, and it's not going to allow the pawls to fall in and engage the teeth. So do not use that for your higher teeth count. I will use it all day long on this Craftsman. It actually makes this Craftsman sound smoother and run smoother by putting it in there. Now, for these ratchets, you're going to use a finer oil. And I've been running something lately. It's something as simple as, I'm not a big Royal Purple fan, but this synthetic oil actually does a nice job for these ratchets. You put a couple drops inside there, it does a great job, and it allows those finer teeth to actually slip and move and engage. And that's the key here, guys, is you want those pawls to engage the teeth into the anvil or into the casing, depending on which ratchet you're using. You want it to engage and have a positive connection. Otherwise, you're going to strip these guys out. So that's my take on it. Now, looking at all these ratchets, do I have a favorite that is my go-to? Tooth count-wise, I still think today, if I could have a ratchet in any style, tooth count for me is going to be somewhere between 72 tooth and 90 tooth, because you still have a bearable head size. You do, and especially in this icon, you get a large pawl. And this is going to be similar for newer snap-ons too, guys. You get a large floating pawl in there that gets great engagement. And you're not going to strip it out easy whatsoever. And you're going to get enough arc swing, tight enough arc swing, that you're going to be able to work on most any project with a minimal issue, fatigue, you name it. For me, 72 to 90 tooth count in a single pawl is my favorite to date. But I'll give this 120 a test. Of course, they go up to 140. I think I've seen even 150 tooth count in these dual pawls. Time will tell on these. But my recommendation, find a 72 to 90 tooth count. Enjoy it. And find what you need. Do you need a flex head? Do you need a locking flex head? Do you need to have a roto? I think everyone should have a roto, actually. Do you like the traditional old school round head? Or do you want to have the essentially 0 degree ratchet as well? All these are good ratchets. Maybe you should have one of each for yourself. Guys, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, please. That allows this to get out to everybody. Thumbs up are really appreciated, especially, and like it, subscribe, and give me your comments. Tell me what you think about what we looked at here. I'm sure some of you are going to have your own grease recommendations, and maybe I missed something inside here. I'd love to hear your comments, because the last comment I heard is what started the video that we're watching here today. So give me your feedback, guys, and we will have another show for you here shortly. Thanks.